we start to see a darker chocolate in the center, that's the point at which we can widen our stirring a little bit. And this technique just helps to bring the ganache together. You're making kind of an emulsion, so it helps to really bring the ganache together in the best way that's best for the chocolate. Because chocolate is so delicious, but really has a mind of its own. So see, this is a good demonstrator of what I was saying, how it comes together kind of in one spot. The rest still sort of looks like chocolate milk. And then as we go, oh, this is just one of my favorite food moments, because then the whole thing starts to look beautiful. Then we can just start widening those circles to make sure that everything is incorporated. And the result should be really shiny, really smooth, and nicely thick.
The best thing about our bite of chocolate, it's actually 2 bites. Hershey's Nuggets, all in on chocolate.
Oh, yes. So while this ganache is warm, it's going to be really, really soft. As it cools, it's going to become a more spreadable consistency. So this is the most important thing to remember with chocolate frostings. I have a couple of recipes for chocolate frostings that include chocolate and some other kind of ingredient like this ganache. And people often write in the comments like, it was impossible to spread that frosting. But most likely that frosting then just cooled too much. Remember, the chocolate is going to continue to firm up as it cools. So you really want to pay attention to the recipe and at what kind of level of fluidity and what texture it should be to use. This ganache, you could kind of let it cool till it's spreadable consistency, as I said, or you can let it cool to room temperature, and then it's ready to be whipped. Whipped ganache is one of my favorite frosting alternatives because it's just ganache, but it has that light, airy texture of something like a buttercream. But it's just got all those beautiful bitter notes, all those chocolatey notes. It's just to die for. I love it, love it, love it. So that's what we're gonna do with this. I have some ganache that's already been cooling to room temperature. We're gonna whip that up. But first, I wanna talk about the last style of the chocolate frosting, which I call simply just chocolate plus. Because chocolate has this miraculous ability to firm things up, it can really be used in conjunction with just 1 or 2 other simple ingredients to make a very delicious frosting. One of my favorites is a delicious vegan frosting that's on Food 52, and it blends melted chocolate and mashed sweet potato or butternut squash to create this incredibly smooth, creamy, thick frosting that tastes super chocolatey, but actually is sneaking a little bit of vegetable in there too, which is super smart and cool. One of my favorites is to mix sour cream into chocolate. You take freshly melted chocolate, add some sour cream to it. I have this in a recipe for my milk chocolate caramel crunch cake on Food 52. It has a milk chocolate cream cheese frosting. No, a milk chocolate sour cream frosting. You just mix the sour cream and the chocolate together to make a smooth frosting. The cool temperature of the sour cream starts to firm up the chocolate immediately, making it a beautiful spreadable consistency. So when you're talking about the world of chocolate, just remember, temperature is key. The type of chocolate you're using matters, and you're always going to want to make sure that you're paying attention to what temperature and consistency you're going to want it to be at the end, so you don't let your chocolate cool too far or try to use it when it's too warm. Now let's whip that ganache. The consistency of the chocolate is super important. We've let this ganache cool to room temperature, which means that it's beautifully thick and it can kind of hold a line when I draw my spatula through it. Still flowy and fluid, as you can see when I stop. There's still a little bit of motion, but this is the right consistency because we don't want it to get too firm or it's not going to whip up to that consistency that we want. So I'm just going to go ahead. Again, I put this onto a baking sheet like this. You do not need to do that. It can be cooled in any kind of container. I just do that to help it cool faster because there's increased surface area. All right, I've got my ganache in my mixer bowl, and I'm going to attach the whisk attachment or the whip attachment. We're going to start whipping this ganache on kind of a medium speed, and what you're going to see is it's going to lighten in color. It's going to look, instead of looking like dark chocolate, it might look a little bit more like milk chocolate. And once it lightens a hue or two, that's a pretty good sign that it's ready to go. If you keep whipping it, it is going to get very aerated and it can get kind of stiff. So you want it to stay kind of a smooth consistency like a frosting. When it starts to hold kind of marks from the whisk in the frosting, and you can kind of see where the whip just was, that's a good indicator that it's ready. So thick, so smooth. Because it's chocolate, it's soft, so. That's whipped ganache. Okay, I'm gonna give this a scrape because some of the darker chocolate, actually you can totally see it right here, it didn't incorporate, so we just wanna make sure everything's a uniform consistency, so we'll just scrape down to the bottom, give it a few folds, and then we can plop this on a cake and show the consistency of what this looks like. All right, let's put it onto our little sheet cake.